These are the next pieces in the vehicle jigsaw. I have here the mounts for the front bumper bar. They've been basically cleaned up. I could probably clean them up a little bit more, drop them back in the bath of vinegar, and they'll clean up very clean. At this stage I'll try and fit them. So they've got a mount on the car, but before I do that I have to put this front panel on. This goes up under the guards and ties the whole front end together, and as you can see here, it's sat under the radiator. That's all got to be mounted up, all bolts through that. The condition of this, it's got bits of rust holes all through here, so I'll probably have to cut sections out and replace them. I'm not too sure that I need both ends, but certainly this end will have to be replaced. Other than that, it's fairly straight, doesn't require any panel beating. So that has to be mounted up underneath, followed by these to make sure then I've got the right clearances. There are packing pieces in here that I can pack it out to make sure it fits okay. So they've got to go on, and then I've got to mount the front bumper bar, which is this. It's apart from the salt corrosion, it seems fairly straight, so there's no damage to that. So they've got to be mounted on. I've got the other number plate. I don't know how this was mounted. Maybe it hung off the mounts here somewhere, but it doesn't seem to be, surely not original. It's mounted on a wooden block, but I'll look at that to see how I can mount that a little bit better than the way that is. The other thing I'll be looking at when I'm mounting this front end up is that I'm going to put a pair of driving lights on, and I've got the choice of either mounting them off the back of the brackets on the bumper bar. The problem with that is they'll then probably sitting back like that and flex. The other solution would be to mount them straight through the panel. So I'll see which looks best, and then I will actually mount the driving lights up, just so I know where the positions are, and if I've got to drill holes in these panels, I'll drill that before I paint. So that's what I'm about to do now. I've just been welding new sections into the front panel here, and I've cut the major rust areas out. Whole section along here where it mounts. There's a little bit of surface rust and a few pits there which really won't affect the structure of the panel, so I'll look at that later, but at this stage I'm not too worried about those. On this side I've also cut a section out here and welded a new piece in. So what I'm about to do now is to put this up under the front of the car and see if everything lines up and bolts on properly. The panel fit is actually better than I expected. The repair I thought you mightn't be able to see, but yes, you can see the weld in there, but that's fairly straight, won't take much finishing off. The fit is pretty good. I mean, I haven't bolted it up tight, nor have I bolted anything up tight, but I can see from the way everything fits together that there shouldn't be a problem. The next difficulty is going to be putting these the bumper bar mounts on down there, and make sure they actually clear this front section, so I'm about to do that now. I've mounted the front bumper bar, but encountered a couple of problems. The first was that this main mount here was bent back at the top about 12 mm. Now I've straightened that with a lump hammer on on the anvil, so that's fine. But this bracket that's on the guard itself is quite close into the guard, and when I look at the other side, the bracket protrudes a long way, which means that the guard is further away from the body on this side than it is on that side. So what I have to do is even that up, but there's a good chance that this has been knocked in, but I actually prefer that. That seems to me to be a better fitting position for the mount. So what I'll do is I'll take them off and I'll actually reform this one to the shape of the other one so the guard moves in closer. I think it will give a better fit to the guard. Whether that's the way it was originally, I don't know, and I really don't care. I think it'll look better if it's closer. I'm just trying to fit the bonnet to the car now, and once again it's the panel gaps that are causing the problem. Now I know I did use radiator surround from a later model vehicle, and maybe that's causing part of the problem, but on this side, the driver's side, when I've got everything lined up in terms of panels, it lines up at the back. The seam down here is right, the seam in here is right, but the bonnet is fouling the top of the radiator shroud there, so it needs probably at least 2 millimeters of metal, if not more, taken off that. Then I have a problem on the passenger side. Once again, gaps here are fine. Up at the rear, the gap here is fine, along the back there is fine. But where I've got the problem is it's fouling a little bit round here, and there's a big gap in here. Now I've looked at that carefully, and what appears to be different from the other side of the vehicle is that the piece of metal on here is actually shorter, and it's shorter to the extent of that wide gap. So I'm going to have to actually add metal all the way down here to even that up. So that's what I'm about to do. A fair bit of work and bonnet on and off, but I should be able to fix it. The bonnet fitting is now complete. I actually had to weld a piece of metal in here, reshape that a bit more around the edge. There's now a reasonable gap around there, so it clears. The other side, this actually had to have at least 2 mil taken off around here to get the gap right, but it looks even with the other side. The gaps here, the panel fit seems quite okay now, so it's now ready to move on to the next panel. Now I've fitted up the bumper bar. I found a few problems with it. The bar was actually twisted. Where it had been knocked in at the top, it had actually curved it over a bit. So I've managed to take the twist out, but I've still got a little bit of work to do, removing a few dents and seeing if I can change the profile of the bar. But I won't worry about it at the moment. The main aim at this stage was to get the bar to fit, and I've actually done that. Had to modify the brackets to get it to line up properly, but there's plenty of adjustment left to work from there. This is actually now a stage where I've fitted the 2 driving lights. Better to drill panels now before you actually start painting, so I've fitted those in place, and I know that they'll actually fit quite well when the car's all painted up. This is actually a milestone that I've achieved. The car is now sound. All of the rust repairs have been completed. The doors, the sills, across into the boot section, everything has been fitted, rear bumper bars and so on. The only thing I haven't done at this stage is to strip the rest of the body off, but what I'll be doing is to actually start stripping all of the panels off the car. The reason for that is that I actually want to start doing some paint work as the weather warms up. So what I'll be doing is that as I take a panel off, I'll be bagging the bolts up for each panel. I've got a whole box of lunch bags, which is quite handy, labelled, and so when I take a door off as an example, I'll strip the door down. All the bolts, all the screws for the windows and so on will go in one bag identified to that door. Same with the guards. The guards have something like 29 bolts in them. This is a car that bolts together, but I now have all the bolts, and I'll bag all the bolts up, so when I've finished painting everything, I know that I've got all the required bolts for a particular panel. So as I said, this is a milestone. The car is now solid. No more rust repairs to do. Now what I actually have to do is to start preparing the panels for paint. It's been a lot of work. I've used about 3/4 of a sheet of new steel to actually achieve that. So there's a lot of steel gone into it, but it is now quite solid. This stage I now start to strip.